This video was produced by the UCD Math Support Centre in conjunction with the UCD Access Centre. The purpose of sampling is to gain information about the population. We usually have a set quantity or thing we want to know about. In other words, there is a question we want answered. For example, this might be, what is the average height of a student in a particular school? Or, do non-smokers live longer than smokers? In designing a survey, there are several questions that we must take an account of. Our first question is, who has contact with the participants? Consider this: will the participants behave differently or answer differently for different people? For example, if you were asked how many hours you study, would you answer differently if your friend asked or the teacher asked? The next question is, how are the participants or objects selected or the objects studied? Consider the video on sampling methods. Participants can be selected through cluster sampling, stratified sampling, or random sampling. The important things are that the participants are representative of the population being studied. The next question is, what are the questions, or how are the measurements being taken? The questions being asked are very important, as leading questions can lead to bias. Also, it is important to know how are the measurements being taken. For example, if we are measuring weight, are we using an accurate electronic scale, or are we using an old-fashioned scale that is known to fluctuate slightly? The next question is, in what environment are the measures being taken? For example, if a company surveys its employees at work, the employees may be more likely to answer in the positive so that they do not affect their relationship with their company. The last question is, what are we comparing our results to? In drug trial research, we use a control group as a baseline to measure the treatment group against. This gives us a way of investigating the effects of a drug. So far, we have covered how to set up a study through types of data, data collection, and sampling methods, as well as discussing ethics, bias in sampling, and limitations of sampling. Now, how do we analyze our data collected? When we have numerical data, we use summary statistics to represent this information. Summary statistics are divided up into measures of location, otherwise known as averages, or measures of spread. Measures of location are the mean, mode, and median. The measures of spread are the standard deviation, range, interquartile range, and quantiles. Please see the videos relating to each of these to understand how we calculate each measure of location or measure of spread. We must also consider if there are any outliers. An outlier is a number in a data set that is unusually big or unusually small, and as such it may skew the data or heavily influence the summary statistic. Outliers can have significant effect on the mean, range, and standard deviation of a data set. They do not affect the other measures of location and spread as much. One advantage of the measures of location is that they are easy to calculate or find. However, while the mode has to be one of the numbers in the dataset, this is not true for the mean and median. Please consider the question when deciding which measure of location to use. For example, if we want a figure to represent the income of a sample, using the mean would be inappropriate, as the small number of high earners would influence the mean heavily. In this case, the median and the mode income figure would be more representative of the sample. In comparison, if we want a statistic to represent the number of heartbeats per minute of a person, we might use the mean, This is because the number of heartbeats per minute is unlikely to vary very much and unlikely to have any outliers. Measures of spread are often used to compare two or more datasets to each other. That concludes this discussion on statistics.